Good morning. We look today at Deuteronomy 28 and 29. And 28, as we finished chapter 27, it was a lot of the cursed are. 28 is the blessings. He says, if you obey the Lord your God by diligently observing all his commandments I am commanding you, I will set you high above all the nations of the earth. I will bless you. And they go on and lists the blessings of, you'll be blessed in the city and the field and the fruit of your womb, the fruit of your fields and the rain. And it just goes on and lists blessing after blessing, and how if enemies rise against you, they'll have no chance. Because I, the Lord your God, will take care of the enemy. I will lead you into battle, and they will beg you. They will come against you as one, and they will flee in 7 ways. They're going to be scattered. If you are faithful, and it says that at least twice, that little word if. Those 2 little letters that can change everything. If. And it's the same words that Satan used, when he tempted Jesus in many versions of the Bible. If you are the Son of God, or sometimes we can think of that as because you are the Son of God, or since you are the Son of God. But that little word if changes so many things. And here God is saying, I'm going to bless you with all of this if you remain faithful and if you follow my commandments. And then he goes on with more. And if you cherish me, if you don't turn away, if you don't worship idols, and we know the history. We know that the Israelites continue to be, they're conquered by Babylon, they're conquered by Rome, and when Jesus talks about, if the true Son sets you free, you'll be free indeed, and they say, well, we've always been a free people. Well, even at that time, they were under the Roman rule, and they forget, and it's, God is saying to them, if you remember me, I will be faithful and I will remember you. And we find out so many times that even when the people forget God, God is always faithful. God is always there to welcome them back. When they get a king who believes in God, follows God, fears God, sometimes they say, but when right now, as of, they don't have kings yet, but God has already put in place, provisions for when they do have kings, when they insist upon them. And so chapter 28 basically is talking about blessings of being faithful. And we hear so often, God has blessed me with so much. And he has. When we look at the blessings that we have and we count, inflation is high, and there's a lot of things right now that we struggle with. And there are a lot of things we don't understand, and a lot of things that cause us pain and sorrow. But yet, within all of that, when we look at the blessings that we have, and to look at the glass as half full rather than half empty, it's so much better. And so the first part, as I said, of chapter 28, chapter 28 is a long chapter. I was surprised how long it took me to read through it this morning earlier. But, so the first 14 verses are the blessings, and 15. But if you will not obey, here's that if again. If you will not obey your God, which I am commanding you, then all of these curses will come upon you. And then here now we have a whole list of more curses of, where your yield was going to be blessed, well, now your yield will be cursed. Where your fields were going to be blessed with rain, now they're going to be cursed with dryness and parchedness. Where you were, where the women's wombs were fruitful, well, now they're going to be not that way. So all of these cursed, cursed shall you be when you come in, cursed you'll be when you go out, rather than blessed you'll be when you come in and blessed you'll be when you go out. And so God is, or Moses is saying, through God's words to them of, this is what happens when you're faithful. This is what happens when you're not. And I think about that with a child growing up. As parents, we trying to instill good values in them to get them to do things, and and sometimes we kind of bribe them, but you know, God's not bribing the people. God is just being honest with them that, you know, if you're faithful to me and listen to me, this is what I'll do. And in life we find those same things, you know, when we follow the rules, when we follow the laws, things go a lot better for us. And when we tend to forget the laws that govern, the laws that are there to protect us and to, you know, keep us safe, sometimes bad things happen. But you know, like verse 25, the Lord will cause your defeat when your enemies come, rather than when your enemies come, they'll be scattered in 7 ways. So, I mean, it's such a totally different thing. So there are, you know, the warnings against the disobedience. And I mean, chapter 28 is, you know, half of that page, a little over half, and then 2 full pages. And then, I mean, it's chapter 20, almost 3 full pages of and the first half a page virtually was the blessings, and then just warnings against disobedience, and it keeps on going that way, you know. And you know, verse 47, because you did not serve the Lord your God faithfully and joyfully with gladness of heart and abundance, therefore you shall serve your enemies. You know, you're going to be slaves again. You're going to have the Babylonians conquer you. The Romans are going to conquer you, and other times. I mean, you are not going to be a free people. You know, it's just, you know, you're going to lack. You're going to hunger. You're going to thirst. You're going to be lacking in so many things. You know, and chapter 28 doesn't paint a good picture. I mean, it shows the reality of turning away from God, and it's a reminder of how many blessings that we get when we're faithful to God, and it just goes on that way, you know. And toward the end, like verse 67, in the morning you will say, if only it were evening, and in the evening you will say, if it was only morning. I mean, it won't matter what time of day it is. You're going to be discontent. You're going to be looking for the future and hoping for better things, and you know, and just, you know, and it says, because the dread in your heart you shall feel at the sights that your eye. I mean, and so it's just so many warnings of forgetting God, and the Israelites did it time and time and time again, as we're going to read on through the Old Testament. And then chapter 29 is maybe a little bit more uplifting in some ways. It's the renewal of the covenant that God made to the Israelites. You know, these are the words of the covenant that the Lord commanded. You know, Moses summoned all the Israelites and said, you've seen what the Lord has done. And, you know, just a reminder again of being diligent, of being faithful. This is, you know, chapter 29 and 30 are basically Moses' third address to the people. It's, you know, so maybe there was a little bit of time between 28 and 29. I don't have any idea about that, but here it takes on a little bit of a different tone again of the reminder of the promises of the covenant, but then it'll get again into the consequences of disobedience, and it talks about being the covenant of Moab, which is not the original covenant that God made with Moses and the people in Israel, but it was again a renewal of that covenant. And Moses reminds the people that, you know, during this 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, I mean, think about it, 40 years and their clothes didn't wear out. I mean, how long does a pair of blue jeans last? Well, not so awfully long. I got a pair on today that's got a hole in it again. I mean, how does that happen? I mean, they look good and all of a sudden, there's a hole in them. But for 40 years, their clothes didn't wear out. For 40 years, their sandals lasted on the as they were walking and traveling around, and you know, and they walked just about every place. I mean, they had donkeys and camels and stuff that they rode some, but think about your pair of shoes lasting for 40 years. What are they going to look like in 40 years? I can't imagine. But you know, during the time that God was leading them to the promised land, through their disobedience, their shoes and their clothing never wore out. Think about that. that this was one of the faithful things of God. And then he says, you have not eaten bread, you have not drunk wine or strong drink, so that you would know that I am the Lord your God. But now that you're coming into the land of milk and honey, you will be able to bake bread. You'll have wheat and barley, plentiful amounts, in order to be able to cook your own bread and to do all of what you would like to do. And verse 10 and 11 and 12 are, that you and all of the people, the foreigners among you and everybody is going to have plenty, in order that God will establish this covenant with his people. He says, verse 14, I am making this covenant sworn by an oath, not only with you who stand here, but also with these who are not here with us today. Promising to the future generations. And that's what God said. I will bless you to the 100th generation or the 1000th generation, but God continues to be faithful, and he promises always to be faithful. And again, then we hear, there are other warnings in chapter 29 as well. And, God is being encouraging, as encouraging he can, reminding them of the blessings, reminding them of the curses. And we're so much better off to live in the blessings. May he richly bless you today, as he always does.